Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Tiana here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition for mobile phones, specifically iOS for Apple iPhones, in addition to that with Android such as Samsung and you name the rest. So last time we've essentially did manage to explore into the 5th world in this game, which appears to be Ultra Heaven, again based off from World 10 from the likes of Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz, and oh no, we actually did manage to get every single crown, so this means we are technically down to 2 challenges left. So because of this though, today this is gonna be the true finale of our Let's Play of Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition, where basically though, as you can see on the right portion of the screen, is that as you can see we actually got 3 crowns on that particular icon, which means, as you can tell, we're about to be going into, without a doubt, is the most difficult stages in the entire game. And in addition to that though, we're also gonna say for the fact that we'll try to able to show off Far East world as far as the actual world is concerned. So relatively speaking now, yeah, as you can tell about the fact that we're going to be going through the Ultimate Challenge run first. Now, as far as I'm aware, that it does manage to take place in one of the stages based off from Jumbo Jungle and Pirate's Ocean, as well as Sinking Swamp, as well as the forms of Corporate Caverns, and finally though, Ultra Heaven. And as far as I'm aware, yeah, those stages are going to get pretty challenging, especially on the 3rd stage, which I'll explain more about the forms of the 3rd stage once we get into it. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact that if you couldn't tell already, today is the day of the forms of how the fact that today's date, of course, is the 31st of December today, in some cases in 2024 today. So you know what that means, folks? Welcome to the final day of 2024 before we move on to a brand new year, which is 2025. And relatively speaking now, I suppose we'll let Maxi will mention more about this later, assumingly about the fact that we need to go for those particular stuff like this first. So as you can see on screen, we've somehow managed to return back into players Baby, because as far as I'm aware, we did somehow select Mimi ever since enduring the forms within Ultra Heaven world, especially concerning for the fact that, well, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that we'll save II for last, for the sake of the forms of Far East world. So anyways, let's get into the 3rd stage of the Ultimate Challenge stages. So as you can tell, there's a bunch of ramps that you have to make across. Now here's the trickiest part about this, is that you have to rely on that particular bouncing momentum. Like, obviously, though, it's about the fact that you have to specifically... Whoa! Jeez, that was a definition of a close call right there. Imagine if I did somehow screwed up at one point. This means about the fact that I have to restart the entire stage all over again, in regards to the forms of collecting every single bananas in each and every single stages, as far as I'm aware. Well, mind you, though, it's about the fact that, unlike in any other worlds in the entire game, basically, though, I don't think it's possible for the fact that I don't think we can able to actually come across into the bonus stage or anything else like that, because as far as I'm aware, much like the forms of how it does it in Super Monkey Ball Jr., alongside with Super Monkey Ball for the Nokia N-Gage, I believe those specific challenges like this only contains 5 stages. So relatively speaking, it's not that very long, as long as you were able to try to master your controls, alongside with the momentum, as well as certain skills you can able to perform. Although you can able to actually skip some portions of certain stages, but I would honestly not recommend for doing this, because otherwise though, if you're being so hasty though, that means about the fact that your banana counter will disappear. Although you don't necessarily need able to try to do this, unless if you're trying to go for 100% completion like I do, well, by all means you might able to give this a shot. So anyway, now, as far as I'm aware, it's about the fact that the most unfortunate thing has just happened. For the sake of the forms of one of those films is going to be releasing. That's what appears to be for the fact that the Batman Part 2 has unfortunately been delayed once again. Except this time, it's now going to be releasing until exactly the same year as in Sonic the Hedgehog 4 movie, which means about the fact that that film is now going to be releasing until 2027. So this means we've only got about 3 years time now until that film is about to be releasing. I'm thinking about the fact that the reason why that the Batman Part 2 is being delayed again, I'm guessing it's probably because it could be something related to the massive competition for the sake of the films of summer releases or spring releases during the films of in 2026. So, or maybe something else for that matter. Well, mind you, I haven't exactly seen the Batman 2022 film just yet, but I definitely heard some good things about it though. But aside from all that stuff though, that's as far as I can try to describe it. And as you can see, we somehow completed the Ultimate Challenge in Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition. So if you think we are done here, well, like I mentioned this before, is about the fact that technically we've got one world left, and that's what it appears to be. We're going into Far East. Now, this particular Far East world is obviously based off from World 4 from Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll. And for what I can tell, for the fact that we don't have to necessarily try to worry about these annoying obstacles getting your way, luckily though, although relatively speaking I was about the fact that we have to go through some very simple stages and some complex stages in Journey Forms within Far East. Now, as far as I'm aware, that I don't think it's possible we can able to actually unlock the crown stage in this world, because all it contains in here is just 10 stages, and that's all there is to really write to home about. So, and also as far as I'm aware, there's also no crown stage either for the Ultimate Challenge. So, relatively speaking, though, it is pretty interesting about the fact that we are actually playing as 2 different playable characters in one singular part so far, which obviously though is about the fact that the Ultimate challenge mode is pretty short, as long as you were able to try to get enough practice for, well, let's just say stage 3, for instance. Because obviously, though, we have to rely on the phone's this particular bouncy momentum, as long as you were able to try to reach those specific platforms very carefully. But I do know for certain for one thing about the fact that a lot of players seems to have a lot of trouble with Stage 3 in terms of the Ultimate Challenge mode, especially concerning for the fact that, well, obviously, though, it does contains a lot of trial and error situations, especially noticeable during the phones that are around when, if you pretty much play the game with motion controls. Sometimes though, about the fact that if you don't have that accuracy with all that particular precise movements with motion controls or gyro sensing controls for that matter, obviously though you're gonna have a hard time with certain stages like this, you know? Although, generally speaking, I was about the fact I don't think it's possible we can able to utilize with the Bluetooth controller either. Well, I haven't exactly tested this out for myself, but I do know for the fact that this game encourages you to use gyro sensing controls, just like the defaults of how it does it for not only motion controls with the Wii Remote within Banana Blitz and Step and Roll, neither especially noticeable with tilting yourself from the likes of the phones of the Wii Balance Board in Step and Roll as well. And as far as I'm aware, the gyro sensing controls is also featured in not only in Super Monkey Ball 3D. I almost said Super Mario for some reason, because I already know for a fact I'm a little bit enthusiastic about the fact that what's going to be up next for Super Mario franchise to come around, especially concerning for the fact that obviously, like I said this before, that next year will mark the 40th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise. So that'll be exciting. Now, I'm really hoping about the fact that it will be a massive year for Super Mario Bros. Franchise, especially that ever since in 2015 that we obviously already got Super Mario Maker for the Wii U. That was actually a really great game to celebrate with the 30th anniversary of Super Mario Bros. Franchise, despite the fact that it was on the Wii U to begin with. But it does manage to work out pretty nicely on the Wii U's release, especially concerning for the fact that it does come with the bundles and all that stuff. So yeah, everything else checks out there, unlike the forms of how it does it in 2010 and 2020 respectively, within the 25th anniversary and the 35th anniversary respectively as well, that they all contain compilation games for its celebration releases, alongside with some honorable mentions from time to time, ranging from the likes of, let's say, Super Mario Bros. 35 and Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, alongside with the forms of the Game Awards Super Mario Bros. Edition, and in addition to that though with the forms of Super Mario All-Stars for the Wii as an limited edition version on the Wii, which is basically just a Super Nintendo game slapped onto the Wii disc. So yeah, kind of lazy for that regard, but still a great compilation if you do ever, you know, miss out on journey forms of not only the Super Nintendo years, but as well as the forms of the original versions of Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Galaxy, if you're able to actually miss the Nintendo 64 or Nintendo GameCube or Nintendo Wii respectively. So yeah, I really don't know if what's going to be up for the plans for the forms of the 40th anniversary of Super Mario Bros. Though, but I suppose maybe potentially they'll try to save it up for the next Nintendo system eventually though. We're not exactly 100% sure about this just yet, especially concerning for the fact that after all, we're still on the forms within the final day of 2024, so relatively speaking, everything else will be come together at this point. So, and let's just say, hopefully though, is about the fact that during the forms within a new year, hopefully though, we can able to actually discuss upon something new is about to come around. Although, I will admit it though right away, I was very disappointed about the fact I never actually get a chance to see this very unique DreamWorks movie at the time for this year, and that's what appears to be The Wild Robot, which I definitely heard some good things about it though. It's actually very impressive visually, and on top of all that stuff though, it reminds me of so much of the movie version of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but a lot more technology involved, and especially noticeable is almost like, well, it's hard for me to explain, because I already know for a fact I still haven't seen the film yet, but what I can tell anyways about the fact that the DVD/Blu-ray release of the film is going to be releasing during at some point in January in 2025, at least to be more specifically the UK version specifically, but I don't know about the films, the American version though, but that's just mainly because at this point in time that I no longer decided able to go after several DVDs where it does manage to contain the region lock system, because as far as I'm aware, that is kind of unfortunate for my PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 could not play certain DVDs from any other regions, which also applies to the forms of, well, I was expecting to try to get myself the Powerpuff Girls DVD collection pack within the complete series on eBay, because I did manage to double check in the actual description for it, you know, with the newest newest released one, it does manage to feature all regions will be accessible, which I can't really tell from that part, especially concerning for the fact that, well, it has been a very long while since we actually somehow owned a physical DVD thing for the sake of the Powerpuff Girls, since in 2019 that we still managed to get ourselves the main event, which does contain the forms of certain episodes like, you know, Eyesore and Twisted Sister and Somethings and Miss, and in addition to the forms of well, the main event, obviously, which involves around, like, hair and all that stuff, and same applies with the forms of something relates to, Bogey Frights, I think is what it says anyway, and generally speaking, I was about the fact I still managed to really enjoy certain episodes of the original Powerpuff Girls, even compared to the forms of this very dumbed down 2016 reboot, especially concerning for the fact that, like we've already established that before, that the action is nowhere near the same or as fast compared to the forms of how it does it for the original series was. To me though, well, I'm still biased I guess, so I'm sure enough though is about the fact that some people will agree with me on this, and as you can tell that once again we're going to this very close call again in regards to the forms of the actual timer or anything else like that, but usually, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that Far East is not that much of a challenge. Well, the only time is a little bit tricky to me, though, is that in Stage 6 in particular, does give me a hard time whenever I managed able to first play that level, because, my goodness, you have to be so accurate with that particular timing when it comes to able to try to go for that particular in-between those little brown stick things, and as a result, though, you have to, like, God forbid, trying to able to get onto this safe platform, because otherwise, if you accidentally fall off during the forms of this process, well, obviously though, like I stated before, your banana counter will disappear, and as a result, you can't get that crown, so you have to do it perfectly in order able to get the crowns and all that stuff, which it kind of reminds me like a similar situation as one of those unheard Super Nintendo game, which appears to be Kid Clown in Crazy Chase, which I definitely heard of, but I've never actually played a game for myself. Because obviously though, in order able to actually get the true ending of that game, you need to be sure you need to master every single stages without making a single mistake. Like, for instance though, you need to collect all 4 of these symbols, and, well, it's probably best if we let some toy sales were able to mention more about it, if we able to actually jump into the new year of 2025. So, anyways though, so here's the final stage in the whole entire game, unless if you don't count the Falls of the Ultimate Challenge test. So, basically though, is about the fact that we need to go for those rotating flower platforms, and that's essentially how the stage plays out, as far as I'm aware. And thankfully though, the entire stages lineup doesn't seem to drag on, unlike the forms of how it does it on the majority of some stages from Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll, but that's just me anyway, so... But anyways folks, since we somehow gathered every single bananas in the whole entire game, so this means Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition has officially 100% completed. Now, I already know for the fact that it does manage to contain achievements, but I'll try to do these on my spare own time, especially concerning for the fact that the only one I haven't got, which appears to be, let's just say, the 4th world complete achievements, which I know for the fact that because I have to keep on resetting my progress during that specific period, but I digress. So yeah, that's pretty much about it basically, and let's just find the credit sequence right here, and we can give our final thoughts of Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition and what do I think about it. Actually, this game is actually pretty alright. I mean, yeah, no matter what though, the graphics looks a bit weird, even on the iPhone smartphone devices, and it does feel a bit rough around the edges for certain character models as far as I'm aware, mainly for Gongon to me though, but apart from those aside things though, the game still looks pretty great visually, aside from rough around the edges character models aside, and the gameplay itself is pretty much standard stuff. And the controls wise, I'm feeling a bit mixed on it. Like, on the other hand, as long as you were able to get yourselves your good steady hands, then you should be able to enjoy the game for quite a bit. And the world themes, despite the fact that there's a lack of originality when it comes to world themes, because obviously though they're heavily borrowed from Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz, specifically though the second half of the forms of certain world selections for Banana Blitz, because obviously though the first half of worlds are from Super Monkey Ball 1 on the iOS smartphones for the sake of Monkey Island, and you pretty much know the idea of what I was expecting. So I haven't exactly thought about the minigames though, because they are pretty much hit and miss, because sometimes though, whenever I played Monkey Golf on my spare own time, my goodness, I pretty much suck at Monkey Golf on this game in particular, because I do still honestly prefer the mini golf style of gameplay utilized in Super Monkey Ball 1, as well as Super Monkey Ball Touch and Roll, but that's just me anyway. But apart from those aside things though, thankfully though, this game is for free by the way, assuming if you're able to actually come across into several of adverts these days. Obviously though, you need to pay for real money to be able to actually support ad free. So this means about the fact you have to wait for a little while. Well, it's not so much for that, but there are a couple of times though about the fact that if you do complete a certain world, obviously though you get interrupted by a lot of adverts, which is pretty tedious enough as it is, which that could be also applied to the forms of Sonic 1, Sonic 2, and Sonic CD, and even Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2, because obviously though those games in particular are part of the forms of the Sega Forever series. So yeah, you might as well give this game a chance, especially considering for the fact that if you do like Monkey Ball, you might as well able to give this game a shot. So either way, thank you guys so much for watching of our Let's Play of Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition, and this is me, Tiana, from the likes of the Maxi Toys. Up next here will be definitely the newest Super Monkey Ball game in the lineup, and that is Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble for the Nintendo Switch, so stay tuned for that for next year. And speaking of which, Maxi is just right next to me, so I'll let you be able to actually give your final thoughts of 2024, so I'll leave you to it. See you guys then. Thanks Tiana, I appreciate it. So, what's up everyone, I am the one and only Maxi here, and I'm from the likes of the Maxi Toys here, And ladies and gentlemen, we made our way to the final stretch of 2024 until we're approaching onto 2025. So with that being said, let's get into my final thoughts of 2024 compared to the forms of how it does it in the past years since, 2011 all the way up to, well, this year for 2024. Now, 2024 is pretty interesting, at least when it's compared to any other years we've somehow experienced so far. I mean, unlike in last year, that I found that year to be pretty good, even though it does have some issues, mind you. But still, regardless of such though, I did have some original high expectations for 2024. But since the year is pretty much wrapped up at this point, I'm a little bit disappointed. Well, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad year per se, but it does have some questionable decisions as far as this channel is concerned. Like, for instance though, let's start with the forms of the positives first. I will still say that much like last year, the game selection, despite the fact that it's not huge to begin with, I mean, there are some awesome standouts though. The game selection is fantastic, especially concerning for the fact that despite their lot of emphasis on Nintendo Switch games for this year, a whole bunch of remakes or ports these days, but I will admit though right away, when it comes to some new game selections for the Switch, they're pretty good, especially that we somehow got, in terms of remakes or ports for the Nintendo Switch, we somehow got Mario vs. Donkey Kong, which is a really dang good time for me. And in addition to, without a doubt, is my favorite remake of all time for Nintendo Switch, which is, of course, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I really do enjoy every single aspect of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch remake, despite the fact that the game is locked at 30 FPS, which, to me, though, it didn't bother me too much, though, especially that when it comes to timing your button presses, it's actually kind of easy compared to the forms of how it does it on this fluid GameCube version's timing. But apart from those aside things though, I did have a really great time experiencing Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door on Switch. And meanwhile, we've got Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which is a bit underwhelming, but it's still a good game, don't get me wrong. But I just feel like about the fact that Luigi's Mansion 2 is the weakest of the Luigi's Mansion games to me though. Although not bad, but not great either. Although, I will give the actual new games some credit for, specifically Princess Peach Showtime, despite how easy the game was. And The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is actually a really cool addition. And of course, we've somehow got Super Mario Party Jamboree, which is the newest entry in the series when it comes to Mario Party games. And of course, Mario Luigi is finally back in Mario Luigi Brothership for the Nintendo Switch, despite the fact that that game is actually in a different developer, because, Alpha Dream, rest in peace, after the events of that particular bankruptcy issue. So, and also, some other games are pretty cool additions too, ranging from Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, in addition to Sonic X Shadow Generations, and Astro Bot, as well as the forms of some other games as well, like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and pretty much you name the rest of the actual other games I would like to discuss upon, but I digress. And also the film selection's not too bad, not too shabby either. I mean, as far as what Tiana, she's already explained about this before, that there are some worse films out there. I'm looking at you with the films of, the sequel to Megamind, which is of course Megamind versus the Doom Citycrate, and in addition to Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie, because my goodness gracious me, those films are total disasters, I'm telling you. Absolute disaster. But there are some films, well, except with Mufasa the Lion King to me though, because I found that film pretty underwhelming. And usually for some other films though, they are really dang great. Well, usually Kung Fu Panda 4 was, well, good, but not the best film I've seen. But nothing compared to the forms of how awesome certain films were that did came out during this year, which appears to be not only Inside Out 2, but as well as Deadpool and Wolverine, and I've heard about great things about the forms of the Wild Robots, despite the fact that we have not seen it on a big screen, sadly, but what I've heard is actually really, really perfect in every way. And of course, most notably though, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which, my goodness, that film, even to this day, has now been my favorite film of this year I've seen so far, especially concerning for the fact it is a true definition of the love letter for certain Sonic fans, myself included. So yeah, it's a pretty cool way for the fact that Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is now officially become the best Sonic movie of all time. So yeah, that's actually pretty awesome. So now, as far as the other things I would like to point out for this year, though, there are some interesting trip outs I've somehow experienced so far. Like, for instance, though, I somehow really enjoy experiencing Super Nintendo World for the first time in Hollywood because it is a huge pleasure in my book, especially concerning for the fact that whenever I first approached there, it just feels like it's like a dream come true, especially since I'm a huge Mario and Sonic fan after all. But going to the forms of this interactive world of the Super Nintendo world in Hollywood, my goodness, I just almost cried whenever I enter in the actual thing for the first time, which, for my first visit of the Super Nintendo world in Hollywood, I absolutely adore every single aspect of it, even for fan services alike, and you know the idea. Now, there are some positive stuff out of the way. Let's get into the forms of some of the worst aspects about this year to me, though. Although, before we get into more details about that, though, I also want to give ourselves the honorable mentions when it comes to Paris Olympics 2024, despite the fact that the Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games series is officially over, which is kind of sad, honestly. But I do really enjoy certain aspects of Paris Olympics 2024. It is such a really great watch, especially, unlike in 3 years ago. Thank goodness there's no pandemic stuff that's been happening. Well, apart from few players out there have suffered the forms of the actual C virus from time to time, which is very unexpected. But regardless of such though, it is still a little bit improvement over the likes of the forms of in Tokyo 2020 to me though. But still, good one regardless. And speaking of the C virus though, let's get into the actual negatives out of the way. First of all, you do realize about the fact on the community post, unfortunately though, one of my beloved dogs, which appears to be Lulu, she passed away recently, since in June 10th in 2024, and that really upsets me the most, especially concerning for the fact that the reason why she dies recently, due to heart condition problems, and I was like, oh, this is seriously, it's not good. It is definitely not great. And usually, relatively speaking, though, that I know for a fact that it's going to be pretty upsetting for most people out there, myself included. And that's why about the fact that luckily, though, since I went to America for a bit, I did somehow manage able to get my, recovery done. Although, despite the fact that well, you get the idea for that point. But anyway, moving on. And the second issue I have with this year is the forms of very messy uploading schedules for our channel, which is pretty much all over the place. And that's why I'll get into the forms of some more topics until for later, by the end of this video anyway. So yeah, you might be able to be prepared for that. So yeah, because there are a couple of times though, we've got everything else organized, but there are some technical issues from time to time. And next you know is about the fact that the timing issue was actually immediately apparent when it comes to likely, you know, uploading certain videos in a specific time or a specific day. And the most annoying thing about this though, and perhaps even the worst aspect of 2024 to me though, is about the fact I suffered a lot of illness from time to time. Like, usually I suffered the forms of some bad coughs from time to time, which is very annoying. And the worst offender of them all though, not only did I suffer the forms of the C virus for one time, but twice that I somehow suffered the stupid C virus thing in 2024 in a singular year. What the hell? Just, what the hell? Sorry for a little bit of a tantrum right there, because I'm gonna stress this enough right away. I absolutely still despise the stupid C virus so much since 4 years ago. I mean, I cannot stress this enough, that unlike in 2022, at least I did catch it once, but nothing compared to this year, where I somehow catch it for about twice in journey forms of a single year. And that really ticks me off the most, especially no wonder why the uploading schedules for this year is a bit of a struggle. especially concerning for the fact that we somehow got one since in January, and we've caught it for the second time at some point out of nowhere in August for some time, which, yeah, it is disgrace. It is an absolute disgraceful moment in this whole entire year. So, yeah, I guess that's as far as I can say about the films of 2024 as far as the year itself is concerned. It's alright. I mean, it's not the best year I've ever experienced. I mean, there are still some highlights though, but aside from all that stuff though, with all its negatives aside, it's okay. It's not the best, like I said, but hopefully though, let's move on to 2025, and I'm gonna say, I do have some high expectations. Well, I won't exactly state it for a bit higher expectations. I'll keep it onto a kept to a minimum for now on, in case that there are certain issues have been addressed. So, let's think about the forms of the future positive thing for 2025. First of all though, obviously though, 2025 marks the 40th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, as you probably would expect at this point. And there are certain games I was really looking forward to. Mind you though, there's not much at the moment, but hopefully though, it will surprise us eventually. So, yeah, we shall see what happens. And meanwhile, in terms of films lineup though, aside from the fact I was really looking forward to seeing Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning is going to be releasing, amongst other some films potentially as well, well, I might able to actually think about the forms of several film releases from now on in 2025, because there are some controversial ones out there. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Snow White, by the way, for its live-action counterparts, because, well, let's face it though, that particular film has already received a lot of dislikes with all these trailers combined, so there's not much right to hum about. And let's get into the forms of the New Year's resolution topic for 2025. As far as you probably already know, originally though, back in June forms within 2020, all the way up to this year for 2024, we attempt to do the forms of the daily uploading schedules. But here's the thing though, we attempt to able to tackle through 3 games at a time during the forms of the actual daily uploading schedules department. Well, in this, the next year coming up for 2025, which is tomorrow, that basically though, the uploading schedules department is going to change, and as a result, I'm actually going to be scaled down to tackle through 2 games at a time instead of 3. Because let's face it though, it can take a very long time to able to get this process worked, and not to mention though, it requires a lot of hard work to do a lot of not only editing stuff, but as well as the forms of a lot of commentary as well. So I feel like about the fact that the New Year's resolution is about to get scaled down, for likely, you know, for 2025 and onwards, I'm only going to be focusing on 2 games at a time, rather than 3 games at a time, because that'll be so much of it busy work, you know? So that's the way how I feel about it, and I would like to once again, for the sake of thank you for our support for our channel so far, because we are getting, actually kind of think about it, we're actually getting pretty close to 1,000 subscribers, which I would like to thank you all for able to actually support my channel. I fully appreciate it, and I'm sure enough though is about the fact that once we made our way to 2025, I should be able to make my way to 1,000 subscribers in due time. We're just not exactly sure when exactly though, but time will tell. Time will tell. So yeah, that's as far as our future plans itself as far as I'm concerned. I mean, relatively speaking though, is about the fact that everything else about 2024 to me though is just all over the place, like I said this earlier. And like I said before, I found that year itself to be okay. I mean, I suppose the final negative thing I can probably think about is that I'm really disappointed with the forms of how much content for Nintendo Direct announcements they somehow bring. Like, for instance, there was only 3 specific Nintendo Directs, not counting the forms of Nintendo Museum or ND World, or even Pokemon Presents, by the way, but I'm usually referring to as general Nintendo Direct types. So, relatively speaking though, let us summarize. I love the June one, I don't fully enjoy the February one, and I don't like the September one. So this means I fully enjoy 1/3 of the entire Nintendo Direct's lineup, specifically the genuine ones. So yeah, there's only one general Nintendo Direct, which takes place in June, and the rest are all partner showcases, which I'm not a big fan of, so you get the idea, and plus because it's not my cup of tea when it comes to partner showcases to me though anyway, so... But, in terms of some other gaming presentations I do like the most outstanding one of the bunch is easily the Sonic Central one, just because I will admit to though right away, Fearless Year of Shadow is the best year campaign for Shadow the Hedgehog in this year in 2024 because it has a lot of gem-packed full of Shadow the Hedgehog content because he is such a cool character after all. Now I'm pretty sure that particular Year of Shadow campaign is actually a lot more better than he falls of how it does it for the Year of Luigi back in 2013, despite the fact that that was a part of the celebration for Luigi's existence since in 1983 for its 30th anniversary for the Luigi character. So, yeah, that's what I can really think about it. So, yeah, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. What was your final thoughts of 2024? And like I said before, I found this year to be okay. I mean, hopefully it gets a bit better later on though, during the evolves of in 2025, and also same applies with 2026 if we somehow managed able to succeed with our achievement goal by reaching 1,000 subscribers coming up soon. And in addition to that though, also let me know in the comments down below of what specific plannings what I will do if I reach to 1,000 subscribers until specifically in 2025, because I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. So, yeah, that's what I got. So, generally speaking though, in terms of new games I was really looking forward to for 2025, it will be obvious. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, because it's going to be on either on Nintendo Switch or the next Nintendo system if they're going to be planning to do one. And also, not to mention though, some more Mario games is going to be on its way too, especially concerning for the fact that after the disappointing lineup of 2022, because obviously though they only have 2 Mario games for 2022, like one game is pretty disappointing, which appears to be Mario Strikers Battle League Football, and then the other game is actually pretty dang good with Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. So, but hopefully though, we can able to actually get a lot of gem-packed full of Mario stuff, all thanks to the forms of Lego Mario Kart is going to be on its way for its Lego sets, and eventually the Mario Day is about to happen on, I will classify for saying on Saturday for some time in 2025 on March 10th. Well, we shall see what happens. So, yeah, my expectations for the 40th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise was expected to be hyped about, and let's just hope about the fact that the Nintendo Direct selection for 2025 will be a little bit better than the evolves of how it does it for to me though, with this year, and maybe a little bit on 2022, and it's especially noticeable compared to 2020, that's for sure. So, yeah, nothing else I can really say about this particular final thoughts of 2024. And I will say right away though, the Maxi Toys uploading schedules department though, that hopefully though we can easily get back on track in 2025, and hopefully though we can able to actually just try to get onto the forms of get back onto its own uploading schedules department, because, you know, like I said before, this year when it comes to uploading schedules it's just all over the place. And I will admit to that right away, that the content is pretty good, especially the popular Let's Play we've ever done, for this year anyway, was, ironically enough, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games for the Nintendo DS, because I know for the fact that since that the Wii version was already popular enough as it is, since in 2016, so I'm sure enough that was about the fact that we somehow tackled for the DS version to go alongside with the forms of the existence of Paris Olympics 2024. So, yeah, that's what I've got. So thank you guys so much for watching for this video, alongside with the final thoughts of 2024. And this is me, Maxi, here, from the likes of the Maxi Toys. And until then, it looks like the clock is ticking for the sake of the new year is about to be approaching onto 2025. So I hope you guys are looking forward to 2025. And speaking of which, I will see you guys in the new year for 2025. See ya!